I really believe in the soft skills. I think people that actually grow in the business, get leadership position, they always need to focus more on how they listen, how they have empathy, how they communicate, how they manage their time, how they inspire. Hello, my name is Dr. Constantine Kiritsis, and my students call me Dino. I'm the International Curriculum Development Expert at PwC and Director of the Mini MBA program at PwC. I will talk to you about employability. I think it's a very important term we should all think about and have in mind. Now, what is employability? Employability is actually being job ready. Things change. There's a fast pace in the world, and things in software, new regulations, new legislation, new requirements for jobs, new things happening around the world. So it's always important for people to have the skill required to make them job ready. We all have to be job ready. And this does not mean that we have to only be good in some technical skill. It's important to have a combination of soft skills and technical skills. Sometimes, or in the old days, we gave a lot of, I would say, attention to the technical parts. And as we found out in the next years of our, in the years that we were employed and we are employed, we found out that the soft skill is probably more important to actually make it in the real world. So people ask me, what are the skills that we really have to be good at? And I want to give some emphasis today on the softer part of things. I really believe in the soft skills. I think people that actually grow in the business, get leadership position, they always need to focus more on how they listen, how they have empathy, how they communicate, how they manage their time, how they inspire, how they can make others better. That has nothing to do necessarily with understanding a standard in accounting or knowing how to handle, let's say, a software. So, the soft skill is really crucial the more we grow in an organization. So if you want me to kind of, pinpoint a few of the top, I would say, skills these days in terms of the soft areas, I would say creative thinking, I would say being innovative, I would say communicating, everything starts with communication. How do you present something? How do you listen to people? Some people have a difficulty listening. It's amazing. What is empathy? Why is empathy very important? How to give feedback to people? And above all, maybe time management. I'm a big fan of time management because, if you know how to manage your time these days, when everything is going so fast and we're swamped with so many emails and everything, and all this big data coming at us on a second basis, I mean, it's amazing. So we need to be, we need to be good in that as well. Many people ask me, how do we upskill ourselves? How do we do that? What's the benchmark? And I'm writing a lot about this, and I have a few articles out there, that I always post about how difficult it is to get upskilled because we are not taught how to learn. Think about that for a moment. When you go to school, they kind of tell us what to do to get to graduate. And they tell us you got to do this amount of hours to do this and become good at whatever. Then you go to college. Many of us go to college and they tell us what to do and we get a degree. So we're great. Okay, we finish something. Then in the real world, it's the company that kind of tells us what to do if they want to train us on something. But it's not a curriculum. So it's important to have individual development plans. But if you work for a small organization that doesn't have an IDP, as it's called, the individual development plan, that could probably, maybe do some professional training for you or certify you in something, you got to search. And it's difficult these days to know what to do to become good at something. So that's one big problem. But to kind of solve the issue, rule of thumb, we have to do about 20 to 40 hours per year on the topic that we're working on to really be up to date. Now, what you're going to do is a different story. I know it's difficult, but it's important to kind of figure out that we need about 20 to 40 hours going to a conference, doing some webinars, and we need some coaching on this. You can't just do it alone. So I'm in education, so it's a bit easier for me than others, but I always try to coach people on their target, what they need to accomplish, and what they need to do. Training is good, but if it's not done for a reason, it could help you, but it may not. So if it's done with an objective, that's important. So rule of thumb, continuing professional development would be, I would say, 20 to 40 hours per year. Now, the last thing I want to say here, I think is very important. We have to see ourselves as applications, like software. So the same way software has to be upgraded, and sometimes it's done automatically, we have to become a little bit like that. We have to be kind of like, we must think in an automatic sense. So, we should get upskilled all the time and learn. We should always learn constantly. And that is, I think, the new norm. It's not difficult, first of all, and it shouldn't panic anyone, because learning is amazing. Learning is great, and especially when you can pick what you want to learn. So think about yourselves as a software. Another point that I wanted to mention has to do with, how did we get into this mess? What was this problem all about? Not having the soft skill, as I said earlier, and why we need to be, constantly upskilled. Of course, the situation in life is that everything changes fast and drastic, and we have to keep up to date. But if you go back a little bit, go back in time, back to the future, as the movie said, if you go back to school, schools were not there to teach us competencies. Being a 50-plus-year-old person, when I went to school, it wasn't there. It wasn't really about competencies. It was about, what do you know? Tell us, what you learned from your book. And then I went to college, and mainly it was mostly about knowledge as well. And then you go into the real world and, trying to get your first job. And it's about communication, empathy, presentation, being extrovert, trying to lure clients to buy something, whatever. So it's a lot of different things than what we got into. So it is the fault, partly, not of course wholly, about the system of education, which has changed since my school years, but it's not there yet. And this is why many organizations, PwC being one of them, and we have the academy, we try to build competencies and upskill people, because we see that void. We have to fill that void, and that's kind of the reason why many corporations are taking on that responsibility. So in the future, we may see a lot of great joint, let's say, partnerships on education between corporations and the universities, because we have to kind of fill that gap, which is not really getting any better, unfortunately.